Speaker, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to rise in support of the introduction of the Rugby World Cup 2011 Empowering Bill. And it's been fascinating sitting on this side of the House and listening to a certain amount of diatribe from colleagues across the floor on issues around running elections, and we just think about how well they structured the last election. They know all about running elections, but the point about this is we must have a successful World Rugby Cup. It's really important for New Zealand, it's really important, Mr Speaker, for our global brand, and it's really important for our economy. We can expect somewhere between 70 and 85,000 visitors over a 6-week period. More importantly, there's going to be something like 4 billion people watching the match across the world. We're watching matches over a 6-week period. And we want to showcase New Zealand because it's our opportunity to show the world what a great place this country is. And I think that this bill is going to make the Rugby World Cup a success because it will allow temporary streamlining of government regulatory processes to ensure that the tournament and many activities that will support around it can be organised and managed really effectively. Now, this is incredibly important, and despite comments from my Green colleague and from Labor colleagues about the ease with which resource consents can be procured for things like marquees, I've got to tell you that is not the case. I have got constituents in Masterton who want to erect temporary marquee-type structures to grow vegetables in, and after 3 years they still don't have their consents because of the complications of the processes which we've inherited from the last 9 years of government. And I've got to tell you, some of this stuff is an absolute nonsense, and we just can't afford to have this sort of restriction leading into an event of the size of the forthcoming Rugby World Cup. The hosting requirements of a spectacle of this scale present really big challenges. So it's crucial that we've got special legislation that's set up to enable the event to be a success and to make sure that we maximise the opportunities that this event presents. It will be the largest event ever held in New Zealand, the largest event ever held in this country. So this bill is necessary because the existing regulatory approval processes aren't going to be sufficient to cater for the extraordinary requirements of a tournament of this scale. And this is due to the long time frames, despite advice from our Green colleague, which are going to have to be endured or moved to one side. So the point of this legislation is to establish a Rugby World Cup consenting authority which will support existing regulatory regimes by accommodating the extraordinary requirements of this tournament, which we'll be hosting here in New Zealand. And this authority will offer an expeditious alternative to the existing processes, which are simply not adequate. So the bill is going to provide for a temporary structure, a single regime for determining, for example, Rugby World Cup liquor licences. The police, I have to say, support this single regime, and it will give the police greater powers of enforcement of liquor licensing provisions and will shorten the process for enforcement authorities to suspend and revoke licences. No urgent consent requirements, such as road closures, can be considered without a recommendation from the Rugby World Cup authority and consultation with the ministers responsible. Now, there is a precedent, of course, for this type of legislation, and those of us like myself who are interested in yachting will remember the event around the America's Cup held here in Auckland, and that was an extremely successful event. So this bill, which is coming to the Government Administration Select Committee, will establish the consenting authority and will empower it to consider applications for regulatory approvals that would be otherwise necessary for activities that are reasonably necessary for the proper conduct of the event and the tests. I think that the bill also includes two provisions to deal with urgent applications or unforeseen approvals necessary or during the Rugby World Cup. I mean, it's inevitable that some things are going to crop up at the last minute that people have overlooked. And so, on the recommendation of the authority, the Minister may either ask the Governor-General to prescribe Rugby World Cup permitted activities by an order in Council during the period 1 July 2011 until 31 October 2011 only. So it's a very short period of time. And secondly, the legislation proposes to grant urgent approvals during the tournament window only. So that'll be from the 9th of September through to the 25th of October. And both powers would only be exercised at the recommendation of the authority, and they'll require consultation with responsible portfolio ministers. So I think that this legislation is providing a lot of common sense. This is an event that is going to make a huge impact in our communities. Even as I speak, the ex-mayor of Masterton, Bob Francis, a wonderful man, chair of our DHB, lifetime as a referee, that's exactly right, excellent referee. He's across in Argentina, as we speak now, selecting referees for the competition. So there's a huge amount of work that's going on. And we in Masterton are going to get, for 2 weeks, one of the teams to host. That's really great. I think that there's a tremendous interest in rugby in my electorate, and I think that this cup is going to really excite and engage our community. Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, this is going to be the third largest event in the world. And we're going to have huge television audiences, and I want my electorate and all of New Zealand to be published in a really good way so that we give tremendous additional benefit to our marketing of our main products like dairy products, meat, wool. And I think that to do that, we're going to have to be really organised so that we can provide time-critical consents for this event. Mr. Speaker, with those few words, I just say that I do look forward to this legislation coming to our committee. Thank you.